Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on something that's basically the invisible architecture of the entire library world. We're diving into ISBD and CCCF, the two standards that took bibliographic chaos and turned it into the ordered, connected system we all rely on today. But first, let's just do a little thought experiment. I want you to imagine a world where these standards just don't exist. Every single library catalog would be its own little island, speaking its own language. Sharing information would be a nightmare. That global network we take for granted, forget about it. It would be, well, just pure chaos.
So the big question is, how did we get from that total mess to the order we have now? Well, here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at the problem, this thing called the information flood. Then we'll meet our two heroes, ISBD, which is like a universal grammar, and CCF, the data translator. After that, we'll see how they work together, and then we'll wrap things up.
All right, so first things first. To really appreciate just how brilliant the solution is, we have to understand the sheer scale of the problem. For decades, information professionals were basically trying to hold back a tidal wave of information, a flood that was threatening to swamp everything. And the pressure was coming from all sides. You had library budgets that were getting smaller and smaller, while that information flood just kept getting bigger. Then computers came along, and they were supposed to fix everything, right? Well, not exactly. They created a whole new problem, a kind of digital Tower of Babel. All these different systems couldn't talk to each other, so sharing resources, that wasn't just a nice to have. It became a matter of pure survival. So, out of that desperate need, the first part of the solution was born, a standard, not for the information itself, but for how we describe it. And here it is, the International Standard Bibliographic Description, or, as we all know it, ISBD. IFLA developed this, and its goal was simple but honestly completely revolutionary: to make it so a bibliographic record from any library could be understood by any other library, anywhere on Earth, no matter what language they used. And this is really the best way to get your head around it. ISBD is basically a universal grammar, but for cataloging. You know how grammar gives you the rules for building a sentence? ISBD does the exact same thing for a bibliographic description. It's the blueprint that tells you what information goes where and exactly how it should be formatted so everyone's on the same page. Now, this is where it gets really clever. ISBD doesn't just tell you the order of things. It uses a very specific system of punctuation, the colons, the slashes, the dashes, as little signposts. And these aren't just for us humans to read. A computer can see that punctuation and instantly know what kind of information is coming next. It's a language that both people and machines can understand, which is just brilliant. And here are those 8 areas. This structure is totally non-negotiable. You always start with the title, then the edition, all the way down to the standard number like an ISBN. The order is fixed. And because it's fixed, a record that was created in Cairo is instantly readable and understandable in California. It just shows you the power of having a shared standard. Okay, so now we have our perfectly formatted description. It's a work of art, written in the universal grammar of ISBD. But how do we get it from point A to point B? How do we actually ship that data across systems? Well, that brings us to the second piece of the puzzle. I love this analogy. If ISBD is the grammar you use to write the content, then CCF is the standardized shipping container you put it in. See the difference? One defines what's in the box, and the other defines the box itself so it can be shipped. You absolutely cannot have one without the other. And that shipping container is the Common Communication Format, or CCF. UNESCO put this together to finally solve that problem of systems not being able to talk to each other. It provides a common language for machines, so a record made in one database can be easily and accurately imported into a totally different one. So let's quickly unpack this shipping container. The CCF record has 4 main parts. You've got the record label, that's kind of like the main shipping label on the box. Then there's a directory, which is basically the packing list, telling the computer where to find every piece of data. The data fields are the goods themselves, our precious ISBD record. And finally, a record separator, just a little signal that says we've reached the end. It's a super logical and efficient system. So we have our language and we have our shipping container. Now let's put it all together and talk about the big so what? What's the real world impact of all this? When you combine ISBD and CCF, you create this incredibly powerful system. This is what makes global networking possible. It's what allows for massive shared databases. It makes library automation way more efficient. And maybe the most important thing, it's what makes copy cataloging and sharing data economically possible for libraries of any size. And look, this is the real takeaway. These aren't just some dusty old standards in a textbook. They are the invisible engine that hums underneath everything in a modern library. Every single time you pull a record from a shared catalog, every interlibrary loan you request, you are benefiting from the work done to create ISBD and CCF. They brought order from chaos, and we kind of take that order for granted now.
And that pretty much brings our journey to a close. When you step back and look at them, ISBD and CCF are more than just technical rules. They're proof of what our profession can do when we come together to solve really big, really complicated global problems. But, the story is never really over. The world of information is always changing. We're moving from a world of print to this super dynamic, complex digital world. And that raises a huge question for all of us. What's next? What is the universal grammar of the future going to look like? It's something to think about. Hey, if you found this explainer helpful for understanding the backbone of our profession, please do me a favor and share it with your colleagues. And of course, like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.